Welcome one, welcome all. We will have a bunch of fun tonight with the Chargers and Broncos. If you noticed, AP is not here. We got Mangone in his place. Last time we had you, Mangone, it was a Packers slate. And now we get an excellent Chargers-Broncos slate, which honestly might have some of the biggest impact on the playoff implications in the AFC. This was actually flexed from a Sunday into a Thursday. Believe it or not, this was supposed to be a Bengals-Browns game that ended up getting flexed out for now the Chargers and Broncos. How are you doing, Mango?
Yeah, imagine flexing Joe Burrow versus Jameis Winston. Although it's not Jameis anymore, it's apparently Thompson, whatever that dude's name is from UCLA. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is actually like a good game. Like I think it's good. I think it's good DFS wise. I think it's good. Like obviously just like, you know, for like playoff implication wise. So overall, I'm kind of excited to talk about it. I'm definitely got my Chargers blue on today. So I'm rooting on the Chargers, I think, if I have to pick a side, but I definitely want it to be a good football game. I'm definitely more in that camp.
Well, after doing over 150 drafts, Mangone, where I just jammed as many Chargers as I possibly could, we have one bullet left in best ball. And luckily that is a Charger stack. It is a Justin Herbert, Lad McConkey, and Quentin Johnston, believe it or not.
Did you do 150 in the millie?
Yeah.
Okay. I did like I think I did 140 somewhere around there, but I did not do the millie only. I mixed it, right? I did like the 20 max. I did a bunch of them. I have 8 left, 2 in the millie. So I have a fun sweat. I feel like it definitely shows how I think, and this is why I want to do it. I think like those like 20 max contests are super soft. Like I don't think people realize like how awesome those were. So yeah, I think that's a really good thing that I learned from doing my best balls.
Yeah, it's a real fun thing. It's actually not McConkey, it's Palmer and Quentin Johnston. But yeah, like it's one of those things where it's just a lot of fun during the course of the season. If you're lucky enough to get one bullet in the week 17, the 1.5 mil to first, 1 million to second, it's pretty electric. You got all that money up top to have a huge year. Would be fun if you get lucky enough for that. But we have a game tonight, a game that is centered around 2 quarterbacks where I am shocked to see Justin Herbert below Bo Nix in pricing. We did our base build as well, which is just sorting by projected score using RPS projections and kind of getting a sense of where this ownership is landing at, right? For our raw score, just when you do it this way, it's a lot of cheap captain, not really that cheap, but Stone Smart kind of leads the way at 24% with a 6,300 price in the captain spot. Javonte Williams, Devon Vele. What you're seeing is a little bit of a mid-tier captain almost. I mean, Javonte Williams kind of fitting that bill a tad.
You're not screen sharing, right?
I am not. Yeah, I did not know that, believe it or not. But we'll go ahead and make sure that this show is now going to begin screen sharing.
I was waiting to hear you like say something that made me like think that you were for sure thought you were screen sharing, and that was the cue. I was like, all right, he's talking like he thinks we're seeing it, and we're definitely not. So
1,000%. And I still don't know how to get the screen share out. There it is. Look at that. Look at all those builds right there. The top one being a Devon Vele build with Bo Nix, Herbert, Sutton, McConkey, Stone Smart. I'll tell you what, that actually looks really sharp. And if you can guarantee me Stone Smart the same role that we kind of saw last week, I wouldn't be against that, right? And Devon Vele, I don't think will be that captain. But again, this is just pure projected score. We're just trying to see where this ownership is hitting. It's hitting a lot of double quarterback builds. It's prioritizing Lad McConkey and Cortland Sutton. Stone Smart is one of the better value. Devon Vele as well. Like this ownership, like of the projected score-wise, Mangone, is kind of intriguing to me. It's very, very flat outside of a few players. What's your take on this initial read?
Yeah, it's interesting how flat it is. I do agree. Like that team you're showing, the Vele one, like I think that is a good team. Like overall, I like it. You've got to be like rock hard seeing Stone Smart up there, don't you? Right? Like this has got to. You feel like you like nailed the call from a year ago. You didn't win any money off it, but you feel like you were right. Am I correct?
Kills me that he's extremely relevant. You know, after 100 to 1, anytime or not anytime, first touchdown bets and stuff. You know. We get Stone Smart, an absolute factor on a DFS slate, which we'll get to a little later. It might not be as clear cut as it seems right now, though.
Yeah, it reminds me of when Colin Morikawa, everyone was touting him at like 100 to 1 to golf as a golfer to like win tournaments. Then
Yeah.
he never won a tournament, and then he was like 28 to 1, and everyone's like, "How is this guy 20 to 1? He's never won a tournament." So that's what it reminds me of. But yeah, we'll talk about the Hurst stuff. I don't know if that's gonna affect that much, if I'm being honest. Like he just hasn't been that relevant throughout the season. Like, and I know he's been dealing with some stuff like injury wise, but like he just never won the job, right? Like he had a lot of struggles. He didn't win the #2 job, the Stone Start, I would say, in the end.
Yeah, in the end, like the first 5 weeks, Hayden Hurst, first 8, 9 weeks, even Hayden Hurst had the keys to the car, right? In a Justin Herbert offense, and obviously he got hurt. He was on the IR, and Stone Smart took over last week after Will Dissly absolutely crushed it in recent times. The thing with Hayden Hurst, though, is it does throw a slight wrench, man, going. I think one thing to note, too, is that I don't think he is even activated just yet. But if he is an interesting value at 1,600. I don't think he's been activated off the IR yet. I do think that is something that they will do a little closer to game time. I think they have until 3 p.m. the same day. I could be wrong, but that is something to kind of monitor because Hurst is going to throw a slight wrench, right? Like I'm not saying it's going to be a huge thing, Mango. We can go ahead and talk about it right now. Like
they, according to Rappaport 3 hours ago, they plan to activate him from the IR. He's practiced fully since his window opened this week. So I would like, while we do this show, we should project him. I think that's a good way to do it.
And the problem with projecting him, never mind, we're good. We can do that. It's like I just wanted to kind of note that Chargers situation, especially at tight end, could look slightly different, right? Like I don't think Stone Smart did anything to lose the job, especially after looking good early on last week, looking great to end the game as well against Kansas City a couple weeks ago. But it is interesting that Hurst could meddle with that role. Anything else that you want to look at projected score-wise, Mango? Because I look at some of this flat ownership, but double quarterback hitting a ton. Is that something that you're going to be looking at tonight and being like, this is what I want? Because let's be honest, like these are two guys who have rushing upside. Justin Herbert, when he doesn't have a bum ankle, is one of the guys who can really get out of the pocket, make some plays happen, even some designed runs of late. Bo Nix, we obviously know what he can do on the ground. Like, is this two quarterbacks that you definitely want in the flex tonight?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Like they're good plays. Also keep in mind, like some of these like studs that you're spending on, like I think you're going to see them kind of cut into each other a little bit where like, I think it makes sense that like they kind of are in the flex very heavy. So I'm okay with it. I even think them at the captain isn't the craziest idea today. I typically don't love QBs at captain, but today I do think you could get away with it. There are going to be a couple receivers that we'll talk about that I like. And I really think it's more of like a wide receiver quarterback slate. Like I'm not leaning into the running backs. I'm leaning into QBs and receivers. I think they're great in the flex. It seems like you're kind of in agreement. Like I'm going to love them in the flex spot. If you're doing, if you look at the playbook, I'm sure number 1 and 2 are going to be, Nix and Herbert as like, the flex options, which makes a lot of sense. And I do think you could sprinkle them at captain though, too. So I want to make sure I'm overweight on those guys, no doubt.
Yeah, you make some good points there. I just want to mention too, like this is a team. This is a Chargers team that got absolutely wrecked the last half of football they played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? So guys like Cortland Sutton could be a much more of a factor for me personally after seeing what that secondary looked like against Tampa Bay. We also have guys like Tavon Vele, but you also have Lil Jordan Humphrey, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin. Like there's going to be some big play guys for the Broncos. Definitely something I'll be looking at here in a bit. Let's go ahead and get our base build out of the way. Let's go ahead and rename that just so I know where I can go back from time to time. Just the projected score there. And then we're going to go ahead and script out a game here, Mango. Let's go ahead and do this.
Yeah, I do have a question regarding the game. I'm curious your take. Do you think the Chargers, they got destroyed against the Bucs, right? Do you think some of that is because they didn't lean into the run enough and maybe they try to lean back into it again? Like that was what was making the offense move, right? With J.K. Dobbins. I know like they don't have the ability to. Like in DFS last week, I played a ton of Chargers stacks. I thought the Herbert, Ladd McConkey, I thought it was a really good stack. Get Stone Smart. On that main slate, I was feeling great with how it started, but then they died. I'm curious if like Jim Harbaugh realizes like, hey, we just can't like drop back 50 times. And if they try to like be more methodical with their like game and try to run it a little bit more.
Well, I'd actually push back that they have one of the worst rushing offenses in the league, and they run the ball too much. Even I think J.K. Dobbins was good to start the year, but he also really plateaued there and had very, very mediocre games even before he got hurt.
Yeah, I'm talking like after the injury. It feels like after the injury, they've tried to like throw a little bit more and it hasn't worked. But I could be wrong.
I think that's wrong because you just look at like guys like Gus Edwards and stuff. There's some times where they just handed them off, 2-3 times on a possession. It just fizzles out. Like they don't have the ability to run the ball because the interior of that offensive line is terrible. Like if you look at the last 4 games since J.K. Dobbins really got hurt, Gus Edwards is averaging almost 2-3 yards a carry, basically. I mean, that's it. They cannot run the ball. And that is something that is just...
I'm with you. Like that's why I did it on Sunday. I was like, listen, like they can't run the ball. Like they are the new Dallas Cowboys when it comes to offense, right? Like it's like they can't run, so they have to air it out. I just was like concerned because it just felt like, and I don't know, maybe you have the numbers that you could find for me that you'd know, but like, I don't know, only like 33 attempts last week just feels low for Herbert in a game where they were trailing most of it.
Yeah, that's this Chargers offense. I was very bullish on it. Coming in to start the season, I thought this offense would look good. Greg Roman has proved me wrong. And I'll tell you, that offense does look a little bit stagnant, and it's not Herbert's fault. It's not the receiver's fault. Just genuinely, the interior of that offensive line and maybe some of the talent on the outside with, the inconsistency of Palmer, I should say, but also the very, 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 very bad running game. It is very much to note with Gus Edwards turning washed. I think Kamani Vidal will be one guy that we will talk about quite a bit. Let's go ahead and just talk about quarterbacks, right? Let's go ahead and get these projections up. Let's go ahead and check out what we want to do with these projections here. We got the RPS ones pulled up. We're going to remove zeros from our pool so we clean it up that way. If I had to ask you, who would you rather have, Herbert or Nix? Who would you say?
Yeah, Herbert or Nix. I think I want Herbert just because I think the Chargers win, so I'd want the winning quarterback higher. So that's kind of my logic. I think they're both really strong plays. I want to be overweight on both. So I like the idea of upping both of them. I'm not going to set a rule or anything like that, but I want to make sure that, because like we talked about, the Chargers run game, it's a disaster. And for the price tag, it's going to be hard to get them in there. Javonte Williams and these Broncos. Listen, Javonte, I think he had a big game last week, but like, I'm not buying it. Like, we know how bad their run game is and how they split up the carries and everything. So for me overall, I need to be over on these quarterbacks. It's one of those things, we bumped them up, but like, I could see myself after I do a run, I need to bump them up even higher to make sure it's getting kind of shoved in there.
Yeah, I like that. And 17.5 bumped him up about a half point for us. We also had Justin Herbert, who I bumped a half point up as well. This is one of those things, too, where I think last time we had a Chargers slate, it was the Chargers and Chiefs, I believe, where you definitely wanted both quarterbacks. I want to say it was definitely the Chargers and Chiefs. And I didn't get aggressive enough with Justin Herbert, right? And I don't want to make the same mistake again. This Broncos team has been, I would say, inconsistent, right? Like they looked very, very bad against the Browns, right? Like in terms of what Jerry Jeudy did to them, what Jameis Winston was able to put up, that was noteworthy to me. The Chargers have the same potential in a sense with, Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson, Joshua Palmer. Like maybe you have that same upside with Herbert, right? Not 500 yards worth, but maybe you could have a 300-yard game in there. The Broncos also, I should note this too. I should have said this at the top of the show. If they lose this game, their next 2 games are against the Bengals in Cincinnati, and then they host the Chiefs. If they lose out, there's a very, very strong chance they don't make the playoffs. So this game is going to be very, very important. And one of those where you look at the Broncos schedule at the Chargers, at the Bengals, and then hosting the Chiefs. That is no easy task at all. Maybe the Chiefs will be resting guys in Week 18. Mangone, I'm with you. Get Herbert up there. Get Bo Nix up there. I don't really want to fade. And you might be asking, well, it's a very soft way to approach the slate. You may be right, but I also want you to check who my wide receivers are. Because after Ladd McConkey and Cortland Sutton, it's not like you have a bunch of options that you're just yearning for, right? Like you're 8,400 for Quentin Johnson, 6,400 for Joshua Palmer. All right, you got Marvin Mims who will play half the snaps, 4,400. Right, there is not a single guy outside of McConkey and Sutton where you're going to feel good about spending up. And then again, let's bring up these running backs. Javonte Williams, 7,600 is going to be high owned tonight. That sucks. Gus Edwards sucks. Kamani Vidal, 6,800. 6,800 for Kamani Vidal. That is insane. And I don't mean that in like a bad way or anything like that, because I really wanted to play Kamani Vidal tonight. It's going to be tough at 6,800, and that's why both these quarterbacks are just almost must-have thing, because I don't want to fiddle with, honestly, backfields that could be split up. I know that Jaleel McLaughlin's status, we're going to get to that now. Jaleel McLaughlin not going to make it for this one. You know, that trims a three-headed backfield into two for the Broncos. However, Audric Estime could meddle greatly with Javonte Williams' workload. We have seen it where Javonte Williams gets 3 carries for -1 yard, and then Audric Estime or Jaleel McLaughlin fill in that role heavily. I don't want to approach this Broncos backfield like we know what's going to happen, because it's Sean Payton, and we genuinely don't know what he is ever going to do. I want your take, though, on what you may do with these running backs here. You have Javonte Williams, going to be a little bit high owned, was one of our top captains in the base build for projected score. You have Gus Edwards, where, look, he scored a couple weeks ago, but outside of that, you're not getting pass catching upside, really. Kamani Vidal has hammered into that snap share a little bit. And then Audric Estime at 5,600. What are you doing with these backfields here?
All right, so I want to bump down Edwards and Vidal. Like, I want them both bumped down. Like, I'm not going to play who's the running back that we need to go to. Like, they are both options I do not want to play. So Vidal and Gus Edwards, not just Williams, Vidal. Like, I want him down too. I know you might not want him down, but maybe you could sell me. But the point I was getting at is, like, I don't want to get these guys pushed on teams at all. Like, if I get some, sure. Like, because I like to use the SaberSim, right? They definitely do a pretty good job of making some adjustments with stuff. Also, look at the price tag, 7K and 6.8K. And I know this is super simple, right? But if I looked at Gus Edwards, and I told you he had 2.3, 9.6, 4.3, 7.1, 2.7, 5.5, you get what I'm getting at, Rubio. All of his performances are not winners at that price. I know it's not like perfect, because yes, Dobbins may have been in like for like a game or two of the ones I mentioned, but he hasn't proven he can do anything. And this one game's terrible. The prices are just too high. I think Vidal's best game was the first one of the season when he had 13 DK points, and he hasn't done anything since. It's just not a great spot for the running backs at the price tags. Gus Edwards should be like 4.4K. I mean, Vidal should be like 3.6. I just think these price tags are wrong. I think so. I want to be lower on them. I don't have a huge take on the Javonte Williams thing. My natural thought process would be 7.6K. I want to be lower probably because he's chalky, and I want to embrace Audric Estime a little bit more. I talked about that with AP on a show that you weren't on when we talked about SaberSim. And I think I want to look up which game it was, because it may have been the game. I can't remember if I got it right or wrong. I think it was like one of his better games, but like the opportunity is there. Like, it's coming. It just depends when it's going to hit. So I would rather take the chance. But if I'm being honest, at 5.4K, I don't like that either. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm concerned about that. So I don't know if I want to go up or down on that. Like, overall, I want to be low on these running backs. Like, if I run stuff and I'm getting a lot of them, that's wrong to me. I don't know what your opinion is on it, but I'm very low on running backs today.
Yeah, so this Chargers backfield, I wanted to bring up Coach Speak Index, one of my favorite accounts to follow. And they also have their own, what was it, Patreon there, right? And I sign up for it, and I just wanted to see if there was anything about Kamani Vidal, right? So here's offensive coordinator Greg Roman from the 17th of December, right? So just 2 days ago. There are some pass protection reps yesterday that I think Kamani Vidal would like to have back. Some good learning experiences in there. He's done a pretty good job all year in pass pro. We trust him back there. He's had some spectacular ones. Young guys in pass pro is universal. They got to learn, right? So nothing really – saying anything else other than Kamani Vidal is still going to get reps, it looks, right? Just very, very much big-time coach speak from Greg Roman. Didn't really commit. to any playing time or anything like that. And that probably wasn't the question he was asked even. But I wanted to just kind of bring up this Mango because like the first game he was active was like week 6 or something like that when he caught a big 40-yard touchdown from Justin Herbert. I do think he can win this backfield with J.K. Dobbins out. And I don't think the chance is like non-zero that he could lead the in touches today. And that could be 9-10 carries. It could be 3 to 4 catches. He's definitely their preferred guy out of the backfield with just catching the ball. I do want to respect Gus Edwards' touchdown upside. Like I think they're 2K, like too expensive, maybe like 1.5, 2K too expensive. But I look at a guy like Kamani Vidal. All right. And I know that we lowered him. I think his original projection. So right now he's down about 0.6 points. Gus Edwards is down about 0.75 points. Like this is fine to me. But I do want to get more Vidal if he's going to be half the ownership of Gus Edwards because there is a very good chance that Kamani Vidal leads the team in touches today. And actually, I might even go get it more aggressive. All right. I want to do this. I want to get Gus Edwards below Vidal. And I want to see what that looks like in the Sims when we do it. I also want to make sure that what you said about Estime, we looked last week, right? There's no world where Javonte Williams is just going to be straight up the number 1, right? There is just zero chance that Sean Payton's just going to be like, well, Jaleel McLaughlin's hurt. We're just going to go ahead and play, Javonte Williams the same snaps, right? Or we're just going to go ahead and give him the snaps. This could be a 50-50 split. And that might be best case for Javonte. He's been very bad this year. I mean, he has. And Javonte Williams has lost that burst since the knee injury. And it's not his fault. But at the same time, like this isn't a guy who has just come out and said, oh, I deserve all these touches. In the last 2 games, Mangone, in the last 3 games, we have 18 touches for Javonte Williams, just rushing, right? He has 16 rushing yards in his last 18 attempts. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, that's going to indicative of what's going to happen tonight. This Chargers defense has been a little bit shaky at times. But to act like Javonte Williams would ever have this on lock is a joke to me. And I do want to get very aggressive on Audric Estime because, look, he is 2K cheaper than Javonte Williams. He is also projected for half the ownership of Javonte Williams. Could that change closer to lock? Is it best to build 90 minutes before? Absolutely. But to me, Audric Estime is a good play tonight. And it's just because of what that backfield could look like, what it may look like, just period. And someone that I really want to get overweight on is Estime. And someone I want to get underweight on would be Javonte. Anything else that you want to mention?
Yeah, I agree. Like the whole point with running backs is for me, like everyone thinks they know what's going to happen in this position. And this is the most volatile, right? And because it's the most volatile, I want to embrace the variance factor. And this is a great spot to embrace it. I'm just going to be lower on Javonte Williams and a little higher on Audric Estime because that feels like a great spot to kind of take a stand and embrace that variance. Where there's other spots where I don't want to embrace that variance with my quarterbacks, right? Some of the receivers, I want to get overweight on those guys who we'll talk about here shortly.
So, all right, Coach speak again. Like I said, I love the account and stuff. We have to find more consistency in the backfield with Sean Payton on the 16th. Okay, not much, but I also want to bring up something that we had earlier in the season. Can I interest you in a third running back coming into the fold, a la Blake Watson, right? And you might think that's insane, but can I remind you that Tyler Beatty was a factor early on in this season? Tyler Beatty just comes up and gets touches for the Broncos. Again, this is why I'm selling heavily on Javonte Williams, right? I'm going to lower him again. I just am, because I don't think there's a chance his role doesn't change from what we've seen in recent weeks. And there's a role where a guy like Blake Watson, after a guy could play significant snaps, and significant could be 20% of the snaps. However, Tyler Beatty, for the same Broncos team earlier this season, was the RB3, and he was meddling in the snaps. He did have 9 attempts in a game against the Buccaneers for 70 yards. Like, there is just a non-zero chance that Blake Watson could even just play the Jaleel McLaughlin role. And Blake Watson from Memphis, right? He's the Memphis running back that we had. It was great for DFS, right?
Yes, that's him. And he's more of like he's definitely, I believe he was more of like a good receiving running back there. Memphis wasn't the type of team that like abused their running backs. They kind of have like a mix of like a power guy and a receiving guy, and like he'll definitely have a role. And the point is, he's $200, right? Like we're not talking about a guy who's 7.6K and 6.8K. Like if he gets one catch for 25 yards, that could be enough to be on the winner on this slate. And honestly, another reason why I don't think it's the worst idea is like I do think the quarterbacks, there's a heavier chance of them being on the winner tonight. And I think those wide receiver ones, there's a heavy chance of them being on the winner. So like I do think we have spend ups to get to. I just don't think they're the running backs.
Yep, and absolutely. I wonder if Javonte, just kind of looking at this, you have Blake Watson where Audric Estimate probably won't be the passing downs back, right? That should be noted. So could that be Javonte's role, right? Like where he's going to play a significant amount of third downs. Could that be even Blake Watson's role? Like you said, he might have been a little bit of a pass catching back in college. He's been removed from college. I think it's last year was in 2023, but like you still have, wait, he's a 25-year-old rookie. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's kind of older for sure.
Yeah. So. I was like, goodness. But yeah, like he was just he's going to get activated off the practice squad, I would assume. Probably was at 3 o'clock that deadline too. So it's good to note on that running back room.
And to be fair, Rubio, he was good in the preseason, right? Like I know it's not the same. Like preseason is totally not the same, but like, again, it doesn't take much. Like I would love Javonte Williams if he was 5.5K, right? I'd love Audric Estime even more if he was like 4.4, right? Like it's just like the reason why we're talking about Blake Watson is like what you said. If he got 20% of the snaps at $200, he'd be interesting. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it would just be something you consider. And we know how Sean Payton plays this game. He plays 3 running backs, right? Like if there's one thing we can tell you with coaching is coaches do certain things and they always do them. Like they always like to play. Sean Payton offenses always play a plethora of running backs. Now, sure, maybe it won't be that much Blake Watson, but it's worth sprinkling in there. Now, if we run everything, Rubio, and we have like 80% Blake Watson, okay, I really want to adjust that. That's probably a mistake, but I like the idea of like upping him now and then seeing what it does for our lineups.
Yep, and you're exactly right. I mean, we were just a year removed from Samaje Perine, Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte Williams having a 3-way split, and we were just weeks removed, not even 4 days removed from the same thing happening this year with Jaleel McLaughlin, Estime, and Javonte Williams all meddling in one backfield. This is Lee. If you told me that his ownership was like 25%, 20%, like I'd be in, right? But like at the end of the day, if he's going to be near 50% owned after the captain and flex, like on something that is nowhere near guaranteed, it's a great leverage spot here. Welcome to the show, Josh. Hope everything is well. And do you like Dicker the kicker at cap tonight, Chris Hendry? We'll get to that. I don't think I will, but who knows? We have seen kicker captain hit a little bit here. And then Sam, game prediction score. We'll do that at the end tonight. This is going to be one of the biggest games that we have left, period, for the playoffs. So, again, this is going to be a fun Thursday night game. I'm mad that they flexed Joe Burrow out of prime time, but if they did, I'm glad it was this game. It is the first time they ever done Sunday to a Thursday flex mid-season. So, you have history being made tonight. All right, Mangone, wide receiver time. I know I'm taking a little bit of extra time. I didn't realize it's already 11:30, but we'll trudge through. We're going to go team by team here. I think it's important to kind of differentiate the two rooms. I also want to add tight ends here. So we'll knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah, look at that.
With one stone smart.
Yeah, with 1 stone smart. We're gonna start on the Los Angeles side. This is an offense that was pretty chalky over the weekend against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Started out on fire. Ladd McConkey, amazing first quarter. Didn't really do anything after that. Quentin Johnson, good first quarter. Didn't do anything after that. Again, we're high on Herbert tonight. We're not high on the running game. However, the wide receiver room is a bit of a slight mess. And I say that where they're overpriced. $8,400 for Quentin Johnson's a lot. $6,400 for Joshua Palmer is a lot. And it's going to keep this ownership really low. I wanted to kind of bring that up, Mango, because is that enough to where, look, Ladd McConkey's the best play of this group, no doubt. Stone Smart, second best play. 4,200, good roll, tight end 1. We don't think Hayden Hurst has a huge factor. Speaking of Hayden Hurst, we do need to get him shown. We do need to project him as well.
Yeah, give him something. Just because I think projections later will have him in there.
Yeah, 100%. But go ahead and talk to me about this Chargers wide receiver and tight end room. What's your first take? Who do you want to bump up? Who do you want to bump down?
Wait, I think it's a Lad McConkey Stone Smart show tonight. I think it's really simple. Sorry for your best ball team, Rubio. I think it's a little tougher for Quentin Johnson and Joshua Palmer. Reason why is Patrick Surtain is not shadowing Lad McConkey. Like, people might think that, but dude, they put Lad in the slot more. Surtain does not go out there. They want to minimize explosive plays. Who typically does the explosive plays? It's typically Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer because of the ADOTs, right? Not saying Lad McConkey can't do explosive plays. When he does an explosive play, he just has to kind of get out in open space, find the soft spot in the zone, and then take off, right? So I think it's a McConkey and Stone Smart game. I think Stone Smart's price at 4.2K, it's just egregious. Or I shouldn't say egregious, but like when I like to look at like slates, I'm like, okay, is this guy good chalk or bad chalk? And look at their price and then make the decision. If I was pricing the slate, what would they be? Like Stone Smart, in my opinion, should probably be like probably 6'6". Maybe you could argue 5'5". I know they typically like put guys above or below that 6K range. They typically put the backup quarterback at 6K. But point I'm getting at is I think Stone Smart's a great play on this slate. Love him. I love McConkey. He's someone else I want to increase. If you have a different opinion on the Johnson and Palmer stuff, I know you look pretty deep at the NFL Next Gen stats. You can tell me if I'm wrong. That's my read on it. When it comes to the DJ Chark and Darius Davis guessing game, I don't love playing the guessing game, but like if you told me I ran 20 teams and I had 5% of each, I wouldn't think it's crazy. I just understand, hey, there's a chance those guys don't get there. So like I said, I want to lean into Lad and Smart. I don't know if that's like chalky and boring, but I just think that's the right approach based on this game. And I've already taken stands in other spots. You're on mute.
This is a team that I am very much involved with, like where I look at a lot of what the Chargers do, right? And I did it all season. They were my top best ball team. I loved watching them. Darius Davis is one of those guys at 800 where he's going to have 2-3 plays drawn up for him. They might be short gadget plays. They might even be runs, but he's going to see the field and he's going to get the football a couple times. He's also their main returner. DJ Chark kind of passed late in the game last week. I think it was just for a 9-yard gain or something like that. It ended the game. I think it was on 4th down. I think it might have been a 4-yard pass on a 4th and 8. But he is maybe going to play. But the three guys, Quentin Johnson, Palmer, and Lad McConkey, and then Stone Smart being tight end 1. I do want to play caution because against the Browns, right? Against the Browns, this Broncos team, I was very much against Jerry Jeudy, and I was very high on Njoku and Elijah Moore. Jerry Jeudy got his revenge, got his lick back on the Broncos in a sense. I do think the Surtain matchup is very much notable. Quentin Johnson's not exactly the type of guy who will just run around and be in the slot one play, go out wide the next, and just move around constantly. He is in a good way. He's been very much on one side of the field, has been very effective on the deep ball for Justin Herbert. I do think this is a very bad spot for Nova. So I'm going to bump him down. He is going to be low owned. I think with Josh Palmer, you have a little bit more flexibility. I do think they would use Surtain on Quentin Johnson more. But with Palmer, I do think 6,400 is just such a deep tag. But I want to be level with the field on it.
I'm cool with that. Like I said, the one thing I will call out, both those guys feel like they will be lower owned. I totally get that. And like, so I don't want to say let's just X them, but I don't hate the idea of like, hey, let's take a take on one and push that one up higher and hope it works out. But I feel very confident in like just not loving those options. And I'm with you. I thought I was going to be pretty low on Jerry Jeudy on that one slate, but the revenge got me too excited. And it ended up being a good slate for me. I was kind of okay with it. But I could see where the concern could be.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where it's just ownership, right? Like, look, they're already projected pretty low, right? And in Quentin Johnson's case, he is going to be 16% out of that. That sounds about right. Joshua Palmer is always capable of a big play. I mean, we saw it even though Ladd was out that game. Joshua Palmer was missed on a 75-yard touchdown from Herbert. Herbert just overthrew him. There's potential with Joshua Palmer. I don't want to lose that. 6,400 won't be owned at all. He's fine.
Rubio, I would argue too, based on Palmer's price versus Johnson, you could make a case he's like a really interesting captain, right? Like if I had none in the flex and I have like 5 or 10% in the captain, I don't think that'd be crazy. I don't know if the optimizer will push it that way, but you get what I'm saying. Like, because of the price tag, that's why I like the idea of buying on Palmer more than Johnson.
I agree. And I agree, Lee Price. He can't keep getting away with a touchdown every single game. He is the main guy that Herbert looks to, though, in the red zone, it feels. Anything else? I mean, we already touched on Hurst and Stone Smart. I do think Stone Smart presumes the role of tight end 1. Would it be shocking if Hurst meddled a little bit? Not really. So, like, if you did want to project Hurst, but I do want to make it known Hurst has been very, very bad this year. He lost the starting tight end role. He is coming off an injury. Would be his first game back. Would have to be activated off the injured reserve later today, which he will be, it sounds like. But yeah, I think Stone Smart tight end 1. But hey, if you have a theory where you just think Hurst is going to be the tight end 1 tonight, commit to that. 1,600 is a good tag. I just think he is washed. Let's go to the Broncos. It's Bronco time. Cortland Sutton, fresh off a week where the Chargers got burned by not only Jalen McMillan and Mike Evans, they also were just completely burned in the entire secondary. We've seen it in recent weeks. I mean, we've seen the secondary absolutely struggle. I like these Broncos wide receivers, Mango. The problem is after Cortland Sutton, you have a very, very split up wide receiver room. And that's to say Cortland Sutton's going to run almost every route possible. Cool. You cannot say the same thing for any of these wide receivers. And this is what makes Broncos slates kind of intriguing. And they are always live for a unique winner at the top because you have 6 different guys who almost have the same upside or like the same ability to have a big play. Marvin Mims, Devon Bailey, more of a floor play, right? Like where he's going to get more of those short catches. But like Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Lil Jordan Humphrey. Those are 3 guys right there who kind of have similar upside. You know, Marvin Mims can catch a streak and go 87 yards like he did against the Browns. Lucas Kroll, Adam Troutman, Nate Adkins, all have been a factor in the passing game at the tight end spot. The Broncos room is a mess, Fangone. What do you want to make of this mess? Who do you want to bump up and bump down?
Yeah, so one thing I'll call it with Marvin Mims, he's like, I get he's boom bust, but like he's definitely very expensive now compared to what he's been, right? He was like 1.2K, $800. Like, I more want to buy lower on him. Like, listen, if I get some, great, not the end of the world, but like at those prices, I'd rather a kicker over him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just being honest. I also think Vele is underpriced. Like, he's on the field a lot. I know you look cheap at those numbers, but like, dude, he's on the field a ton. There are times they take Cortland Sutton off and it's just him in one wide receiver sets. Like, he is definitely someone that I think we need to be higher on. So that's the stand I think I want to take the biggest stand on. And then I would also say I like Troy Franklin. We don't have to project him over Marvin Mims, but I like him more than Marvin Mims, just like based on the price. Dude, he's had opportunities and he's been close. He's going to get one soon. Like it's been there. So that's where I'm at. I like everything. I like the way you kind of projected it. Tight end wise, I'm not dying to jam in the Krolls and Troutmans. Listen, if you get them in the flex, you get them. It's in there because SaberSim wants to put some uniques and call it a day. I don't want to have like, 30% or something like that. But I really want to focus on, I mean, Sutton's a good play. I think Vele is the best value, and then it's Franklin and then Mims. And I agree with Don Yeezy. I think Vele captain's not crazy. I think it's just a good buy low spot. He hasn't hit lately. This is what happens with wide receivers, right? Sometimes they have bad weeks and then they kind of pop back off. I think this is a spot for him to really pop back off.
So I wanted to go over some snap counts here, or not snap counts, routes ran. All right, so week 15, last game against Colts, started off rough for the Broncos, ended up going well, basically, in week 15 in the second half. Cortland Sutton ran 33 routes. Great. 9 targets, only 3 catches, 32 yards and a touchdown. Cool. That's fine. Devon Bailey ran 23 routes. He was number 2. Troy Franklin, 17. Lucas Kroll, 14. Lucas Kroll is the cheapest of the bunch, but also I would make the case should be the highest projected. I think he is the most capable with his hands as well out of this tight end room. I would actually like Lucas Kroll quite a bit, and he's running more snaps than Little Jordan Humphrey, Adam Trout, and Adkins. Also, just kind of continue on down the line. 11 for Marvin Mims. That's a 33%. And look, he had 4 targets and those 11 routes. So I don't want to just make light of it, but like he's running 33% of the routes. Like you're not going to get there with volume. You're going to get there with big plays at 4,400 especially. 10 for Little Jordan Humphrey. 9 for Troutman and Adkins. And then McLaughlin and Estime had 7 and 4. The big name that I left out there, the big name, was Javonte Williams with 19 routes. He had 3 targets, 2 receptions, 8 yards. So what that kind of shows you last game, we already talked about Javonte and stuff. It does seem like he will be the main pass catching back tonight if Blake Watson doesn't meddle too much. So like if you were looking for maybe a role change for Javonte Williams, it would be Jaleel McLaughlin not being in makes his role in the passing game much more secure. However, his running game, his touches are not guaranteed at all, I should say. So, yeah, Megan, I'm in agreement with you. Vele runs, 67% of the routes last week. That's fine. Yeah. That's good. That's better than most. But Troy Franklin, I want to even get more bullish on Troy Franklin. I do think, let's get him above Marvin. Right?
I'm cool with that. I like the Kroll take too. I thought the Kroll take was good. And yeah, the point with the Javonte thing, Rubio is like, listen, if he's gonna be 50% owned, I'll probably have 30%. Like I'll have some, right? Like, but like I just wanted to, I'm not saying he's a bad play. It's just like you can't just come on and say everyone's a good play, right? You have to take some stands in spots. And Javonte's just someone I will be under on. And I want to be higher on some of these past guys, and we talked about them. Like, and I love the Vele, I love Franklin. We're aligned pretty decent on the receivers, it sounds like, for the most part.
Yeah, very much so. Let's go on to our favorite, Cameron Dicker, the kicker, and Will Lutz, and then also the defenses as well. Saber's been pushing a lot of defenses on me. A lot. Like more than I would care to admit. And it has been very close to working out. And I will say, they are going to be low on. Look at the Broncos defense. That's wrong. That's going to be much closer, I think, when Locke rolls around. I do think that both offensive lines, especially the Chargers' interior offensive line, Alt and Slater are great, but their interior offensive line is horrible, and that's why Herbert's getting banged up a little bit. Like, you're going to have upside with these defenses here, Mango. But I want to be very careful when I bump them up, when I bump up the Broncos D, because if you bump up the defense too high, you'll end up getting way too much. Dicker is my preferred kicker tonight. Not too, I think I can just leave him be, but basically this is how I see the room going. What do you see here? Do you see anything different projection wise?
Yeah, I don't care that much about defense. I'm not like a huge defense guy. But I get it. Like, understand why they're getting pushed. I would rather the kickers. This isn't like I'm not going to tell you to change it, but like I would maybe like adjust Lutz over Dicker to be like make my stuff more unique, right? Like just to, I don't know, like we just don't know what's going to happen with them. Everyone's going to run the same projections and they're like the same. Like I'd rather just kind of flip flop it because it's not that big of a deal, right? Like Dicker's great, but so's Will Lutz. Will Lutz is a really good kicker, so it just depends which drives stall out, right? And I don't know which ones are going to stall out, but my guess would be the rookie quarterbacks. That would be if I had to pick, right? But I think we are going to see a lot of kicks here. I just think we are going to see. I think these offenses have the ability to move the ball pretty good, but they have holes in the offense that allow it to have a ton of field goal opportunities, right? So I do think it's a heavier kicker slate. So like I said, I like them more than like some of those like running backs we talked about in that mid range. Like I definitely want to make sure when like I run stuff, I'm like overweight on both kickers.
Yeah, I am kind of in agreement there. We're going to find out. We're going to find out when we run the sim. We're doing the main $15 tonight in the sim. Let's go ahead and build out these 5,000 lineups. We already did all the positions here, and then we'll spend about 10 minutes on the sims, and then we will get out of here. Let's go ahead and build these lineups out. Lots of selling in the mid-range, lots of buying up top, which I like. I think that's the right way to approach this slate.
I do too. I actually love hearing it from that perspective because that's sometimes how I like to build out my teams, like and think about, hey, where did I buy? Where did I sell? And selling the mid-tier sounds great to me on this slate. I think it's the right move.
Yeah, and again, look at pricing, right? I just ordered it by salary. Look, I mean, it's hard not to buy the quarterbacks. It's not hard to buy the wide receiver ones. But then look, it's look at the pricing. $8,400 for Quentin Johnson, $7K for Gus Edwards, $6,800 for Kamani Vidal. Javonte Williams, $7,600. Like I just don't think his rushing attempts even change. Like
I just think there's so many cheap options that could end up being on the winner, and it's not easy to predict. But there's so many that you might look at the slate and see like a Bo Nix, Herbert with one of Sutton or McConkey. It has like a kicker and then like two unique cheap ones, and you're like, how is that like unique or like only two dupes? You know what I mean? Like I just think there's way more of the ability for that to happen than people realize, and I'm just gonna embrace it and hope it kind of hits.
All right, some fun facts here, Mango. And let's go ahead and pull up the NFL Pro, one of my favorite sites to use for fantasy research. Seeing where these teams are weak at. You know, the Chargers are actually very strong against defending the tight end spot. That's interesting to me. I did not expect that to be the case. I want to see if there's any major weakness on the wide receiver front here. Let's go. I wish I could do a segment of weeks, because I feel like injuries have really changed the course of this Chargers defense a little bit. Their secondary got banged up. The talent's been down. But last week, the Chargers gave up, with all 32 teams playing, gave up the 4th most yards of wide receivers who lined up out wide. That's kind of cherry picking, almost all those for Mike Evans, I bet. But it really is just a case of defenses that I just don't think are settled in like to what they were. And this is a Chargers defense that started off the season very good, but a lot of that had to do with strength schedule. A lot of that had to do with a clean bill of health. And right now, like, there's just I'm kind of worried. I really want the Chargers to win tonight, Mango, but I'm kind of leaning the Broncos side. I just am, and it feels gross. Let's go ahead and just get your game thoughts here before we dive into the Sims. Who do you think wins it? What's going to be the score?
I mean, I definitely want the Chargers to win, so I'll probably lean into that more. I do think the Broncos are live. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's just like a stone cold like lock, but I will go with let me go. It's a 42 total. I'm going to go with final score is, I want to think, I don't want to give too many field goals. How many? Let's go 20 for the Chargers, and we'll go with 20-16. So a lot of field goals for Will Lutz, but 2016, 2017, one of those two scores is where I'm feeling.
I like it, man. And I'm actually going to go under as well. It feels like a gross division game on a short week where I don't know. I kind of get skeptical of what we're going to see here. We're going to see a team win it on a 2-point conversion. Sean Payton's going to go for 2 at the end of the game. 21-20 Broncos. How they get to 21? It's going to be with a 2-point conversion after 2 Will-Lutz field goals. This is going to be an interesting one. Again, I'm cheering for the Chargers tonight. I hope they win. But I just can't get past how bad the interior offensive line has been, how bad the secondary has been. Can that be enough? Can they hold the Broncos off for long? We will find out. Let's go ahead and sim the $15 contest tonight. If you're wondering, what is the contest sim tonight? It is $300K to first. It's not bad. You know, we're just a few weeks removed from Bryce winning $250K solo shipper. We also, again, shout out to the Cake Boss for the Millie Maker hit off the $20 with a mega Lions stack. Was it a 2, like Jared Goff +2? I don't know. Who else is in that? Like Ramondre Stevenson, Chase Brown. Then you have Brenton Strange, Brian Thomas, Devontae Adams. Like, he outscored my lineup almost 3 times. Like, I think I scored my main lineup, Mango, was probably the worst I've ever had. Really? I got almost last. Like, I genuinely almost got last.
What was your stack? Was it Tua?
Yes, it was Tua. Yeah,
I knew it. Look at that.
Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle. Yeah, it was bad.
Do you know why I guessed that? I guessed that because when I was at the live final, I knew the guy that got dead last, and
he also did Tua. I bet
he had Tua. I met him at the final, and then I went up to him and I was like, "Oh, how'd you do?" He's like, "I was dead last." Like, it was like really funny.
That's vibes right there.
He had a good time. He was good about it, and so that worked out. I think he did good in the afternoon slate, so that was good. They have an afternoon slate now at the live finals, which is interesting. Dude, like, do they have they have a prize pool dedicated to the afternoon slate? So like that way, like, people aren't just like sad at like 2 o'clock. It's actually pretty sharp. Like, I
really like that. I gotta say, as someone who's never been to a live final, that's a very interesting thing.
Dude, it was like one of the, hashtag DK partner. Very, very, very sharp move by them, because that way people aren't sad. Like, when your Tua stack is just like dead, you know what I mean? Like you got Jalen Waddle and he like got hurt. Like, you're not like, oh, well, I'm dead. Like, you're like, well, if I'm dead, you're like, on to the afternoon slate, baby. Like, it's all pop.
Yep. All right, man, going. Look at this. This is the worst thing that we could ever ask.
Yeah, see, like, that's something I would fix.
Well, good news. He's only 6.4% in the pool. So we can just.
So we have all the Blake Watson teams, like every single one.
Hey, just for what it's worth, Saber didn't have Blake Watson projected, but I think they did give him an ownership thing. We are going to remove Blake Watson from the pool just for the sake of the show.
Yeah, for the sake of the show, I think we remove him. Yes.
Immediately pops up in captain. All right. Remove him from captain too. All right. So what does this look like? Right. Without Blake Watson in the pool, we get a lot of double quarterback tonight. They're actually very popular in the captain. We get 24% Herbert in the captain. He's a little bit banged up, which is slightly concerning to me, but hey, it's fine. Ladd McConkey is our number one. Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix here as well. And then it just drops off. It drops off an entire cliff. And honestly, kind of like it. I kind of like how it's focused on these four guys. I think that if my captain blows a chance to be these four guys, and maybe if I was feeling frisky, I throw in Estime, and maybe I throw in a Stone Smart, who Joshua Palmer you mentioned earlier, like Devon Vele, like those are guys who are just ancillary pieces though. Like this is the meat and drink of the slate. I like them in the captain. What do you feel about the captain ownership here?
Yeah, I mean, Bryce talks about this a lot where like there's some slates he just like condenses his captain ownership and he's like, listen, I'm just playing these captains and like that's it. And like I just think that's the right move on this slate. The only other ones I would mess around with, I think, is I don't hate a Vele or Stone Smart captain, but like I just think I'd rather lean into the top four guys. Like I said, I mean, Bryce does a ton. He'll be doing a show, I'm sure, with JBC in them later on today. You know, Bryce crushed it in NHL last night, so he's been on a nice little heater. So I'm definitely gonna be listening to that to see what they're thinking because I think that's how I want to approach slate. I love that the projections are pushing it in that way, and that's kind of how I would want to do it. So I love it.
Look at this one, man. It's nice. I know it doesn't have
team is nice,
but look at that. Look at this right here.
In the words of John Gruden, that's got me feeling nicey.
Again, sometimes very cheap players can like funnel. If a Vele captain hits tonight, you're not going to get a unique winner, right? Like if someone cheap hits the captain, that's just the safe. However, it's a Broncos slate. We just went over the snap counts. After Cortland Sutton, after even Vele, I guess, 67%, it falls off a cliff. You don't know who's going to get the rock. Same thing with that running back room. You can leave salary tonight and still have a very, very good chance at finding the optimal one. I wonder if we get the past optimal sheet on the Run Pure Sports website once AP fills that out. I want to see what it would look like for the Broncos because is there more salary just left out for Broncos slates because of how those touches can go around?
Yeah, the reason it would be okay to be is because you have guys like Quentin Johnson, Javonte Williams, which also his teammates leveraging off of. These are expensive guys that I'm trying to think of how to word it, but like they're expensive guys that don't have high projections, right? And like it's like when you run a slate and like you see Nick Chubb is like 9.2K and you're like, Nick Chubb is not supposed, like he's got an 8 projection. Like, what are we doing? That's why it works on this slate. I do not think it's crazy to leave salary today. I will call that out.
Yeah, I think I am actually going to lower my min salary. We do 45,000 on the show. There's a chance, and I don't like getting too low because at that point you're just sacrificing ROI. You still want to get a decent return and stuff. However, is there a chance that the winning lineup dips below that line? If you're wondering why are all these ranks terrible, it's because we got rid of Blake Watson.
My only concern with doing that, Rubio, the only thing I would worry about is like if you start changing too many, like if Saber starts changing too much Ladd McConkey to Quentin Johnson and it ruins your ownership percentages there, like your exposures, that would be my biggest concern with doing what you're talking about. But all in all, I think that makes sense.
So I just brought up a lineup. This one was 45-3. All right. So in theory, you can play Bo Nix over Joshua Palmer here, and it would make a lot more sense, right? Like, oh, look, I can just what it's doing is like Palmer straight up over Bo Nix or Palmer or Vidal straight up over Bo Nix. That's a little aggressive. I do think like after seeing the lineup that leaves 4,700 like this one does. I mean, it makes sense though if you're going to do it, right, Megan? Like 5-1 Chargers.
Yeah, if you're going to do a 5-1 Chargers, Bo Nix probably got you like.
Chargers defense.
He got like 7 DK points, right? And on 7 DK points, he probably wouldn't be on the winner.
Yeah. And that's I don't want to get too aggressive on that the more I think about it. Here's 45-1. again, I want to bring this up because like I want people to see like what does it take to leave salary, right? No, this is what it takes. It takes very gross builds. Like I think I'm going to walk back that take. But we do get a lot of these lineups in the 45-7, in the 45-1, in the 45-3. Like what they are 5-1s, and they are just one side of the ball, right? I want them to get a Broncos one, since I think
it's like a Chargers win 20-6. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and you know what? It's in the realm of possibility, right? Like this could be a very gross game, with it being in division, being a short week. We don't get any of those Broncos ones, which I'm kind of sad about. Anyone want to see a captain, what a captain lineup looks like, or anyone want to see what a player looks like in the spot here? We got about 4 minutes. So sorry, man. I know we wanted to end. But when I get talking about the Chargers slates, I get a little amped up. Mangone, I want to bring up Cortland Sutton captain. Okay. All right. So this is something that I wanted to bring up here. Stone Smart, Chargers defense. I want to see one without the Chargers defense. Here we go. Oh, I like this. Lucas Kroll is going to be an interesting one tonight because I do think he is being underprojected from us right now. And I do think, look, we got the main four. We talked about it. I want these four more than anyone. That's not to say they have to be in the same lineup every time or whatever, but I want Sutton, I want McConkey, I want Herbert, I want Nix. Outside of those guys, I care less what happens on the slate. Right? Like as long as I got those four guys, I know I'm going to have a good day. Mangone, I can get behind this lineup. 4,800, 48.8. Again, I'm liking a lot of these lineups, but leaving a little bit of salary. This one makes sense to me because you just stack the passing game. If this ended up winning at the end of the night, I'd be like, damn, that's such an easy build. Why didn't I think of that? What's your take on a Cortland Sutton captain here?
Yeah, Cortland Sutton captain is definitely like it's one of the four that I want to get exposure to for sure. So that's like the big four, right? The ones that we talked about. Like, and there's a chance I X out all captains but that four: Nix, Herbert, Ladd McConkey, and Sutton. Yep,
and this is another one too. If you like the kicker, right? Like Cameron Dicker, Stone Smart.
I love that team. That's a good one.
Look, man. 47.8. Name of the game. I don't create a max salary too often, man. I'm creating one tonight. No 50K teams. I'm not filling the salary on any team tonight. And look, I don't think SaberSim is going to do that for me because look, let's play a game. Did we fill out the salary? Damn it, I did it by salary. I screwed up the button. Hold on. We're going back. We're going back. Is there a 50,000 team in the top one? There is. What does that look like? Let's find out. Come on, you beat all captain. Well, that makes sense because that won't be.
I won't be playing that one. I'll say that right now.
Guess Edwards. Oh God,
that sounds disgusting.
So
I was like, I had a team during the Niners slate, and I was talking to one of my buddies, and I was like, it had what's his name, Taylor for the Niners, the backup running back.
Yeah.
And he was like 7'6". They had him and they had Kyle Juszczyk, and I was like, I'm not playing this team. Like this.
It's kind of crazy how we weren't that far off that being optimal almost. Like Patrick Taylor had a chance even in that fourth quarter. Dude, that game being such a train wreck. All right.
That was weird.
Play of the day, man. Before we head on out, who's the most important player today for you?
Most important player, it's probably one of the receivers. It'll probably be Ladd McConkey. I like Sutton too, but I lean McConkey if I have to pick one. So we'll go with Ladd.
All right. I like it. Ladd McConkey, you're number one. I'm going to go a slightly different route. Go to the Broncos running back room. Javonte Williams could see his snaps increase, could have more involvement in the passing game, sure. However, any guarantee of that happening in the run game is just a lie. Like, we don't know what Sean Payton's going to do. Embrace variance. 5,600 for Roderick Estime. Could be a clean split in that backfield. Could have Blake Watson heavily involved as well. Heavily involved being like 10% of the touches, 15% of the touches or whatever. But I do think Roderick Estime could be the bell cow in that backfield tonight. 5,600. He is my most important player tonight. 4-man go and 4I. Thank y'all for watching. Hopefully you have a great rest of y'all's day, and winner of that 300K up top is one of y'all. Or maybe, hey, we can all hold hands and split at the very end. Have a good one, and bye-bye.